Well, I know that heat is just incredible out there, and sometimes you just don't feel like going outside to the grill. So we've got a solution for you. We've got something that's incredibly tasty. It's something that you would often want to put on the grill, but we are doing a maple glazed Chipotle salmon in our cast iron skillet today. And we're pairing it with a little bit of sweet potato puree and some sugar snap peas.
Hey everybody, it's Walter from Artistic Gourmet Adventures. My wife Kim and I own this unique small group tour company where we host groups of 6 to 12 guests for 1 week luxury adventures in beautiful locations throughout Europe and the United States. I have the privilege of being the adventure chef, creating and preparing daily gourmet meals for our guests. We also enjoy creating in-home private dinners for clients and friends when we're back in the States. Many of our guests request our recipes and want to learn cooking tips. So, in this video series from our cozy home kitchen here in the beautiful Loire Valley of France, we will demonstrate a wide variety of recipes, from culinary classics to originals, as well as covering professional kitchen techniques for the home chef. For more information on Artistic Gourmet Adventures, check our website, linked in the description below. Now, let's start cooking! The secret of this maple chipotle cast iron salmon is really in the rub. And so we're going to look at our ingredients for our rub today besides our salmon. So the ingredients that we have, and as we do this, I'm just going to mix these in. So we've got about 2 tablespoons of brown sugar that we're going to add. We've got a tablespoon of chili powder, a little bit more of that. We have a teaspoon of chipotle pepper, and in this case I don't have chipotle pepper, but a good substitute for chipotle peppers is smoked paprika and cayenne, if you'll just mix it 1 to 1. So I'm just going to put in about a half teaspoon each of cayenne and of smoked paprika, and then we've got some ground cumin, and we need about a half a tablespoon of ground cumin, and then some garlic powder, and we're just going to use about a teaspoon of garlic powder, and some fine sea salt. So this is different than iodized salt. It's sea salt. It's real salt. It hasn't been run through machines. It hasn't been processed. It's a real sea salt. So if you can find that, that's going to be the best thing to use for that. And then we'll just do a sprinkle of black pepper. And we'll mix that up, and that will be our rub. And one more ingredient that we didn't mention before, of course, is our glaze. And in this case, we're using a maple syrup, a true maple syrup. So we're not going to use that yet. It's going to be one of the last things we do. So we'll just set that aside while we prepare our salmon. But let's talk for just a second about salmon. When you buy fresh salmon in the store, a couple of things that you can check to make sure it's fresh. First of all, it should not have a fishy smell. And then the second thing is it should be nice and firm to the touch. So it'll be nice and firm to the touch, and it shouldn't have a fishy smell. And then the next thing you want to do is make sure that it's nice and dry. You want to make sure you just pat, it'll have water and things from the packaging on it. Make sure you pat it nice and dry. And then we're just going to use a little bit of olive oil to coat it with. And this is really just to make our rub stick. So just coat it with a little bit of olive oil. And in this case, we're using a skin-on salmon. So we're going to be cooking it with the skin on. All right. So there's our coating, and then we'll just rub that. And be generous with the rub. The salmon is a pretty thick piece of protein, so it takes a good deal of rub for it to actually get in there. And we're probably going to let this set up for 15 or 20 minutes. And you could even do this for longer if you want, just to make sure it's nice and marinated. So now we've got our rub. We're just going to cut this into serving pieces. And by the way, if you were, we are going to be doing this in a cast iron skillet. But if you were going to do this on your grill with a plank, a cedar plank or a cherry wood plank, one of the ways that you can do it if you don't have one of those fancy fish grill cage thingies is that you can just literally score it with, as long as it's skin on, and keep it together right here. And that way you can keep your fish together while you're cooking it, and it won't come apart. But it's very difficult to cut it evenly once it's cooked, because at that point it's flaky. In this case, we're going to be pan searing this and putting it in under the broiler. So I'm going to go ahead and slice it into serving sizes. So there's a rub, and we'll get to cooking. Of course, always with cooking fish, you want to make sure that you have a hot skillet. So we are doing this in a cast iron skillet today, and I've had it on pretty high heat. You know, cast iron takes a while to heat up, but once it heats up, it really holds its heat. So it is nice and hot, and now I'm just going to add a little bit of grapeseed oil to it. This will be for searing our salmon. And because we are doing kind of a two-step process, we're going to cook the salmon what's basically called unilaterally. In the cast iron skillet, we're going to cook it on one side. We're going to cook it skin side down just to get that nice and caramelized and bring out some incredible flavor. And then we're actually going to put it in the oven underneath the broiler attachment, or the grill. In some cases they might call it a grill. So we just want to get that nice and hot. And with cooking salmon, one of the biggest mistakes people make is to overcook it. So the skillet is hot, the oil is hot now, so I'm going to turn the heat down, and we're going to go ahead and put our salmon in. So we're just going to go skin side down. And remember, when you're putting salmon, chicken, anything in a hot oil, is to lay away. So we're going to lay that away from you so that it doesn't, in case some oil pops up, it doesn't pop up onto you. So we are going to cook this, and because it's a fairly thick piece of salmon, we are cooking it on a kind of a medium-high heat. And what we want is we want the color of the salmon to change to about almost halfway up. So once that color gets to about halfway up, it'll start turning kind of a white. Then we will, at that point, if we were going to cook it all the way in the skillet, we'd probably let it get 3/4 of the way up, and then just flip it over just really quickly and kind of just kiss it on the other side. But in this case, we're going to cook it almost halfway, and then we are going to put it under the grill and sear the top of it, and then we'll glaze it with our salmon. So let's give that probably another 3 or 4 minutes, and then it'll be time to check it. You may notice we've turned our Venta hood on, just because when you're doing something like this, it's going to create quite a bit of smoke. So we're trying to keep the smoke down. Now, because this salmon is so thick, we are going to help it along a little bit by just grabbing some of the oil from the pan and start to help it to cook that top side a little bit, because we don't want it to get so scorched on the bottom before it cooks the inside that we don't want to eat it. All right, so what we're looking for is, this is kind of what we're looking for. You can see that, maybe you can see it better on this one. where the white, it's about a quarter and almost halfway up, And this side, as you can see, is pretty much already cooked. So salmon is one of those fishes that you can easily, it tastes great, even just a little bit undercooked. Generally, salmon can be enjoyed from 38 degrees to 41 degrees centigrade, about 100 to 106 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's just very, very tasty that way. So we pretty much have what we want here in terms of the color moving up the salmon. So what we'll do now is we'll take it and we'll put it in under our grill, and in the oven here I've got the rack set pretty high, and we are right below the grill heat right there. So that should not take very long to cook at all. So we'll leave that in there for a second, let it get a nice seal, nice caramelization on top, and then we'll glaze it with our maple syrup. Okay, let's check our salmon. Oh, it's looking just beautiful and feeling even better, getting nice and firm. So at this point, we can glaze it with our maple syrup, and be careful when you do this, because as the syrup goes down into the oil, it might tend to splash a little bit. Okay. That is fantastic. Let's put it back in. Give it a few minutes more. In the meantime, I have blanched some sugar snap peas, and we're just going to heat those up, and we'll have those along with our salmon. I'll bet our salmon's about done. So we're going to check it one last time and see where we are. Oh yeah, beautiful. Oh, you know, with salmon, the thing is you want to touch it, and you don't want it to be real firm to the touch. You want to have a little bit of bounce back, just like that. And that is just about perfect. So it is basically done. But I just want to see a little bit more glaze on there, so we're going to do that while we wrap everything else up for our tasting. And we'll put it back in for literally probably about 30 to 45 seconds. Our fish is looking marvelous, so it is time to take it out and give it a taste test. So there we go, there's one. And we'll just put it over here and let it drain. Oh, nice. Okay. All right, we are ready to plate. So let's start. We've done just a little bit of tarragon infused sweet potato puree. So we'll put some of that down on our plate. Like that. Maybe even more. There we go. A little bit of that. And we're going to pair that with these sugar. And I don't know if you've ever tried sugar snap peas, but they are just incredible. They're so tasty. You simply need to glaze them in a little bit of salted water, and then to finish them off, I usually just put them in a little bit of skillet with it. You could put a little bit of olive oil or a little bit of butter, and you are good to go. And there's our salmon. That is just beautiful. And we're going to finish this salmon with a little bit of, this is called algae, it's basically algae salt, and it's really just a salt, it's a sea salt that has flecks of algae in it, and it's very, very tasty for seafood. So, salt with algae, fine salt with algae.
Okay, and let's finish that with just a few flakes of nice scallion or green onion, as they call it. And there we have it. We've got our maple chipotle cast iron salmon, and we've served it with a smattering of sweet potato puree infused with tarragon and some sugar snap peas. I think it's time for us to give this a taste. Before we do that, let's talk a little bit about what we've paired it with wine-wise. Today we are pairing this with a wine that is not that often thought of. It's not normally your first choice, but this is a wine from the Beaujolais area. Beaujolais is a wine region in the southernmost part of Burgundy. And when most people think of Burgundy, of course, you think of Pinot Noir. But as you get south of Burgundy into the Beaujolais area, the primary grape there is the Gamay grape, G-A-M-A-Y. And this goes perfectly with chicken, with seafood, with shellfish. And you know, it's not a real heavy, like a heavy Cabernet Sauvignon like you would have with a steak. But because the salmon is, you know, you could have it with a white wine, you could have it with a red wine, but it's nice and buttery, and I almost call salmon a meat because there's just so much to it. So we're pairing it with this wine today, and it should be very, very nice. So let's just give it a try. Oh, look at that. Nice and flaky. I want you to kind of see, look at that. Look how it flakes, and it's not dry. It's just really, really great. You get all those flavors of the rub, and you know, as with any rub, use your own discretion because it's got a little bit of heat to it, and but that heat is played against the maple syrup, so you get a little bit of the sweet. And in case you need to stay away from sweets, if you're doing the keto diet, everything on this plate works great for a keto diet, and you would just want to leave off the maple syrup glaze. That's it. Even the sweet potatoes, there's no brown sugar. A lot of times people put brown sugar in their sweet potatoes, but there's no brown sugar in it. It's just a wonderful organic sweet potato that has great flavor. But I'm telling you, this salmon is just unbelievable. And you know, just perfectly cooked. And just let me make sure I'm telling you right on the wine. Yes, I was right. Perfect pairing. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more, give us a thumbs up below and hit that subscribe button. It's free. And ring the bell if you want to be notified as soon as we release a new video. Also, let us know in the comments if you have any special recipe requests. We really appreciate you tuning in. See you next time.